Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to the SendouQ Season 11 Finale Qualifier. I'm Sasu here with Rose, and we're going to see some of these teams just jockeying. Instead of having to get into that top 12, they go straight, if they get that top 4, to the SendouQ final. But before we get into that, how are you, Rose?
I'm so good, Sasu. It's always a good commentary block when we've got the Pinklings together. I'm so happy to be here. Very excited to see what's coming up next. Like you mentioned, we're going to be seeing who's going to be emerging among the top 4 teams to guarantee a spot in the finale for this season so that they don't have to fight it out and juke it out to be one of the top 12 for the leaderboard. So anybody who makes it here, you can be like, sweet, I've already punched my ticket.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of the teams, even the top level teams, will just have to grind SendouQ to get those points to make sure they're at the top 12, because maybe during the season, not so invested in it. A lot of these players have other stuff to do, so this is definitely going to be a really strong through line to get straight there. And especially this time around, the SendouQ final will also be a qualifier for the Global Gauntlet as well. So gets you that much closer to being on the roster of 6 that they're going to allow through.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, if you're at this level, if you can make it to the Global Gauntlet, that's super exciting. You get even more practice going up against Japanese teams. And the last Global Gauntlet was, I think, very, very exciting to watch for all of us, especially those of us in the West, and being like, oh, look at us go. Look at us go. Are we learning? Are we learning things?
We're learning and we're getting better, but it starts with this. I think a lot of the players that were able to get through, super thankful, but you have to make it to the top first. And here are going to be 2 teams going up against each other who are going to be looking to do that. Whole House Evil versus the Avengers.
Yeah, of course, we're going to have Maverick, Bread, Silly Soul, and Jelly over on Whole House Evil with Xerxes, Kenshin, our little squid friend, Fumi, and Kaisa over on the Avengers. Both of these teams are seated very close to each other for this tournament. So I'm excited to see exactly how things are going to shake out between the two of them. This is going to be all splat zones.
Yes, I feel like when it comes to, and I think Global Gauntlet as well will also be all splat zones. So ultimately, you know, you want to have that. So there's a translation of the skill, so to speak. It says that Urchin Underpass is next, but I think that may actually be Sturgeon Shipyard that both of these teams have to play on first.
Yeah, the overlay was freaking out for a second there. These will be all splat zones, and picks are going back and forth between the teams based on what they have indicated that they're picking from. So we're starting on Sturgeon Shipyard, which our team 1 picked.
Yes, and I think that's actually going to be the Avengers. Yes, that are playing there. Very interesting pick, and I'm excited to see what they have going on for them comp-wise. I feel like Sturgeon Shipyard, you know, Bucket can be pretty strong here. I think bows tend to like here as well. So sometimes when you have to see this team pick first, it makes you wonder, like, well, why are they picking here? I mean, obviously we see a Brinewater Spring, so I'm like, do one of you have a leader going on here? Maybe not, seeing as though not really many of these maps are leader maps, I would argue. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. Sturgeon, as long as you have the setup, anything can be a leader map if you try hard, I suppose.
Yeah, I wonder how much AoE we're gonna see coming from the Avengers. I mean, you also wondered that for Whole House Evil, them having picked Humpback Pump Track, which would be game 2. But I see Sturgeon, I just think sloshers.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I think strikes get a lot of use here. There's a lot of verticality, but we're just going to be able to get into it and see what those comps end up being. A Sea Blaster, no surprise given the meta we're sort of in, is going to be going up against another Sea Blaster. I'm seeing Gal, but more importantly, I'm seeing the Fizzy Bamboo, which you certainly don't see often.
Yeah, you might notice we're seeing a pretty notable lack of traditional backlines here. You've got a Bamboo, but even then, they do have that really solid spot there on the spinner, likely going to be pushed away by that blaster, but no real classic backline in terms of a heavy splat laying or a leader or a pencil. Both teams here, neither of them having that classic backline. I think as you're seeing, they're both going to play very aggressive, very upfront. Takuban getting a very quick pick. There are going to be a lot of jump outs to various players with the tacticalers online going to benefit this quick and frenzied gameplay.
Yes, really good call on noticing that both of these teams are practically backless. That just gives them more space and more time to just dive. And right now, you see that I believe the Avengers just have a complete stranglehold. You see why it is this was one of their picks. Airman kind of sneaking behind, setting up that bubble and allowing their team to move in. And I think it looked like they single-handedly were able to cap over that zone, and finally they've broken into mid. 3 members down for the Avengers, so it's just the Zap kind of holding up there. But Airman trying to get that flank, and does ultimately get it, but gets checked for it. So I think it was looking definitely really bad for Whole House Evil, but in the meantime, they've been able to break in.
Yeah, and now it's going to be on the Avengers side. They have to break in here. That is going to be neutralized, but it looked like that may go back into the hands of Whole House Evil. Yes, they're going to get some picks here. We got one down on both sides here. Lots of the marks out. Again, this really, really fast gameplay, but I think, both teams really need to establish this strong control here. That looks like we might get a lead flip happening, just barely hanging on. 1 point difference at this point. Can the Avengers cap this to save their lead? The hammer's gonna come out. They cap it. They manage to maintain that lead, and they are going in yet again for that pick. This Ink Brush setting up strong here. Do they know? Doesn't matter because they're dead now.
Yeah, and even though they go down, I think they've done their job in taking that space and keeping everyone from the zone. I think we saw it before when the Avengers had that initial hold, that being able to set up a wall where people just can't break into mid is sort of the name of the game here. Now, in the meantime, their Zap is down. I think luckily their cooler had come out, so they might be back fast, but there's just a scuffle here for mid. But the zone has been neutral for quite a bit. The Bamboo goes down. Waterman not quite finding those pits, and actually all of the members there of Whole House Evil go down. That is a wipeout. So the Avengers really held on to their guns, so to speak, and I think are about to widen their lead in a moment.
Yeah, you see the brush was sharking for a bit. Does get pulled out. Is not able to use that hammer. Gets taken out. But that doesn't matter. The points are ticking down one by one super quickly. Just a couple more seconds. That splashdown's going to come out. The opposing splashdown going to come out. But that is not enough. That is game going over to the Avengers. I think we did see why they picked this.
Yes, and it I don't know if it's worse or better that you see the splashdown and it still wouldn't have been enough to neutralize that zone at the end of the day. So I guess you walk away from it. You don't think, oh my gosh, if I splashed down earlier, I could have held off the game, because it just unfortunately wouldn't have been enough. But the Avengers, they really stuck through that counterattack we saw from Whole House Evil. And like you said, we see exactly why they picked it, because I feel like first hold super, super strong. And then after that, being able to retake and then hold on. We had that neutral moment for such a long time during the end of that game. And when the dust settled, coming out on top, clearly they know this map mode very well.
They do. And Sturgeon Zones is not a map we see super commonly. Even when I play SendouQ, I really don't see people pick it very often. And sometimes when it does get picked, people are like, who picked that? And then somebody's like, my bad, I forgot that I had it selected.
You have to shamedly self-identify as the person who did it. I think Sturgeon ultimately is just so large, and that's why perhaps it works really well not to have a backline there. I mean, it's nice to have an anchor, to have someone to jump through, but I think when you can keep attacking, the best defense sometimes is a good offense. So having this wall of people who are jumping you, this ink brush, and a lot of that attack power can keep people in their spawn and away from the Avengers.
So Whole House Evil was the team to select our Game 2 map of Humpback Pump Track, but looking at the weapons that we saw from the Avengers, I wonder if they're also feeling pretty good going into this second map. Especially, like, I could see if the brush is able to set up here, especially into a flank pushing forward, that's going to be scary to fight against.
Actually, there's a lot of things if we see a similar comp, I think that will be scary. The fact that I think when you have that backline there, you can just sort of pressure that window. Both teams have a C blast, but the fact that both are just so dive heavy, everybody's focused on fighting, the sheer volume of scuffle that we might end up seeing is going to be extreme. But actually, we have a complete change, I would argue. Fireman gonna be on that heavy. We've been seeing a lot of heavy these days, and Waterman switching over to that Luna Blaster. And a Dynamo.
Airman on that Dynamo, I think, is going to be dynamite on this map. Dynamo, absolutely so much fun if they can set up on Humpback here with all of those ledges that they can just flick from relative safety. But of course, Takobon, you see, still playing that custom blaster, is going to be such a menace here. There is the brush getting ready to strike in again, but Iceman's going to try to hold it down, using that killer whale, going to start breaking in here, going to take care of people one by one. The whale also getting a kill right there. There's going to be 2 members down on the Avengers. Whole House Evil, should they be able to set up here, especially that Dynamo, if they can guard these ledges, I think it's going to be pretty difficult for the Avengers to get in.
Yes, but I will point out that I feel like the Avengers comparatively has a very fast comp. So they might be able to outpace Whole House Evil if they play their cards right. The cooler does come out for everyone, so if anything, that's going to make them all the faster. And meanwhile, everyone's just sort of in mid, holding hands a little bit, just making sure that they cover all of those sides. So a lead switch happens. Their brush does go down. The Dynamo trying to get a pick in mid, but gets ultimately punished, I think, there by the Zap. And the Gal, no surprise there, sets up that wall, walks forward, gets the picks that they need. That's one. They try to go for the second one, but they go down. Everybody's going down. It's just the Dynamo, and they're just going to have to really wait for their teammates. They hope to break back in.
Yeah, the Dynamo cannot take that alone, so good on them for not charging in forward. You can put a decent amount of paint down, but you brought up a really good point that, a lot of the weapons on Whole House Evil are slower, especially that Dynamo can do a really great job once their team has control and has taken the space, but they cannot do a whole lot alone. And the Avengers is counting down quickly right here.
Yes, right now I think it's like a look of speed versus the sheer volume of paint that Whole House Evil has going on. We have that Fizzy as well as that Ultra Stamp that gets tossed, and I think that helps them get the zone. Chumps are out, but the Dynamo just taking care of all of those. But in that 1v1, Dynamo usually going to lose up against the Zap, so a trade happens here as well. This jump in Airman just narrowly living there, especially they have that sprinkler kind of like giving them a lifeline. So things at a little bit of a stall. I think the Avengers are just trying to break through those penalty points at the moment. But I've been seeing very constantly Whole House Evil just struggling to really hold and keep. Like, they have the zone right now, but we'll see if they're able to hold on to it for a long time. They haven't been able to do so during the rest of the game.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm wondering if one of them's going to try to get in here. Waterman's been trying to poke this out here, but there is a hammer at their face. They're going to bring out their own hammer, but they lose the hammer fight. How? No.
Hammer's just so inconsistent sometimes that you just have to hope and pray that your hammer is going to be the one that the Splatoon gods favor. But unfortunately, did not work out for them. So once again, Whole House Evil a little bit at square one, trying to figure out how to move forward. I think the Dynamo is going to be in that window. They do get their cooler, but they go down. It's also very far away from their teammates. So their teammates go down without the cooler. They get that flip, but it's very quickly painted over. But that we have just over a minute left. It gives them a little bit more time in the game, but I think something's gonna have to change if Whole House Evil wants to walk away with this win.
Yeah, and they are 3 down. Iceman the only one alive here. They have very few seconds to get in there. So they're trying to heal up here and get some paint. But those penalty points are over for the Avengers. They only need to hold on for a few more seconds. Paint's coming out. That is a hallelujah for Whole House Evil, managing to at least buy a little bit more time. But they need to do more than that. They need an actual stronghold here. And that's hard to do when they keep going down one by one. I think we've seen they've been able to take some good fights, but overall they've been losing a lot of these fights. And despite what I would think of them having like a pretty paint positive team, especially between the Dynamo and the Heavy, they just keep getting taken down, so they can't keep that paint on that zone.
Yeah, Whole House Evil keeps buying time, but if you keep going to the shop, eventually they'll be out of stock, right? And it's looking like we're getting there. 15 seconds left is happening. So Tacoban just trying to pressure anyone so they cannot break into mid. The paint is finally coming out. They do have control. We are going to be triggering overtime if they're able to keep this. Finally, it looks like they have something of a healthy hold, but while I say that, the Dynamo goes down. So Waterman just sending out those fizzies, hoping this time that they win the hammer fight, and they do. You see that they toss that, I think, and get a pick. And now the pressure is on the Avengers to break into mid and take the zone.
Oh, it is neutral right now. That Dynamo doing everything they can to keep that paint on the zone. They're starting to get some flicks in, but they're gonna go down there. That's blue. That's neutral. It's so close. It needs to be held a little bit more. This Heavy's gonna go in, but it's just them alone right now. There's so much paint and specials. That is not enough. The Avengers managing to take that back when it truly mattered.
That was such a crazy hold there. Clutch for Whole House Evil. Unfortunately, not giving them the game on their own pick here. But I feel like at the end, with the way that they were able to take advantage maybe of the panic we saw coming out of the Avengers, maybe that speaks to why they picked it. But moving into Brinewater Springs, I have to wonder if maybe they've noticed I think the issue may have been pacing in terms of how slow all of their weapons were. So I wonder if we see a change moving into Brinewater.
Yeah, and that's true. Whether that's possibly some amount of team comp changes, and some of that is more of a recentering what you want your own pacing to be. Of course, we're seeing Whole House Evils playing really fast and aggressive. I wouldn't call it like a hyper dive necessarily at all, but they're going in and they're taking fights pretty confidently and moving in and just playing fast and aggressive without some slower weapons on their side. Even when they do have perhaps maybe the occasional less mobile weapon that's going to be slower, that's not going to be something like a super fast shooter. The shooters on their team and the more mobile weapons are helping cover for people who are a little bit slower. And I think that's really making things difficult. And the Avengers are just playing so strongly right now that I'm like, oh my gosh. Whole House Evil, I think, really just needs to be like, okay, if we're going to play slower, we need to figure out what we need to do to control the pace of the game to make them play at the speed that we want to play at.
Mm-hmm. You definitely have to control the pace of the game, make it difficult for all of those maybe faster weapons to feel comfortable confronting you, I would argue. And I think the trade-off there is, oh yes, but we have paint, right? They had a Heavy, they had a Dynamo. Dynamo can be so deadly on something like a Humpback Pump Track. But I think ultimately when you're up against a Zap, a Bamboo, right, that can just kind of safely chip away at you. And the fact that they themselves, they have chumps as well, so they have a lot of paint to contest the paint that they're coming with, may end up being an issue for them. So now we're going to Brinewater Springs.
Yes.
I'm going to be excited to see what both of these teams bring, because we've been seeing kind of a reluctance on the backline sort of end of things. The heavy makes another... I said we've been seeing some reluctance. We have essentially two backlines here in the heavy, and instead they have a rapid on for that cooler versus the zap that we saw in the first game. So this is going to give them a little bit more reach, and maybe that carbon certainly is going to speed things up, at least if they can stay up. Unfortunately, down at
they do get taken out, but I like the carbon switch. I think it's going to be definitely more fast, more aggressive. And even though, we are seeing a double backline, I think when you're playing something like that with like massive paint support from the heavy, you can also have that rapid with the cooler play super aggressively. That is, if they can get in, because this is the worst situation you can be in Brinewater. You've got that sharking custom blaster just staring there. Is going to be forced to move out of the way, but getting in here is so annoying. And that's three members out on Whole House Evil. 4, then I say wipeout, and the points are still ticking down. They're halfway through. They have such a strong hold on the enemy spawn. Whole House Evil looks like they can't even walk through the front door.
Yes, this is going to be an issue, because they also, I would argue, don't have particularly great weapons or specials for retake either. So they're just going to have to brute force taking that space. You do have Taco Bomb once again dropping there. I think that's maybe the start of you getting into mid, but 2 of their members are down heavy. That's a delayed wipe, and that is also a 100-0 run, unfortunately, with what seemed like spawn camping the entire game. I think the Avengers, they're basically backless, and clearly it really worked for them in the set.
Oh my gosh, especially on Brinewater, there's not a whole lot of ways you can go to get out of your spawn, and no matter which way you go, the opponents, when they're right there, can see exactly where you're going, and without a lot of things specifically for a retake, you got to really take some aggressive steps forward. But there were just bombs set up right in their front yard, and they could not make it through.
Yeah, I think retake can be pretty brutal there on a Brinewater, and once again that was the Avengers pick. So they just kind of really had a stranglehold on everything that they quite like to do. So that ending in a 3-0, of course, puts them forward up against Team Snails, who I believe is the first seed. I think.
Yes, that is our first seed, which I believe is several members of PXG.
Yes, along with Volty, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But regardless, all of the members on Snails did play in the Global Gauntlet. So I think it's just sort of a hopeful case of maybe your time being elsewhere and you want to just go straight there with trying to minimize down on the qualifiers that you have to play. So the Avengers certainly have their work cut out for them going up against the first seed versus Whole House Evil, who will drop down to the losers bracket.
Yeah, double elimination here. Kanden was able to get a 3-1, so they will be moving into quarterfinals. Another quarterfinals match is going to be between Div 5 and Poltergeist. Div 5 actually being our, despite, haha, we're Div 5. They're our second seed.
People just be saying things for a haha, for a giggle, haha, we're low level, maybe just to put your defenses down. You're just like, Div 5s, we got this. And then they're your second seeds, and they're full of very strong players. Yeah, Mirage is here. Mirage, I believe, is from Hypernova. We have Sam. This is quite a strong team for sure. So hopefully no one gets tricked by that. I mean, you see the seed, what's up. You see they got through it in a 3-0. It is what it is, I suppose.
Kanden will be matching up against the King Hatano Fanclub, who also managed to win 3-0, similar to the Avengers who we just watched. And they also will be the set that we're going to be looking up next, with Bake Punchy, Nick, and Asta over on Kanden, and Crowny, Capitalismus, Pablo U-Snipe, and Auraboy36 on King Hatano Fanclub.
Ooh, I think that this is actually a lot of European Splatoon that we're going to be seeing here. So I feel like this is actually going to be a pretty fun sort of matchup that we're anticipating in this next round. Because I think ultimately, seeing everybody come from all is very fun. So having like a kind of like Europe v Europe kind of go here, I'm definitely anticipating it.
Yeah, of course, moving on it's still going to be best of 5 all Splat zones, with different teams having picked different stages going in. With should we get to a best of true like full 5 games, then it ends up being a map that both teams picked. But we'll be starting out over on Flounder Heights, which was our buddies over in the fan club picked that one, and then alternating from there, Crab Leg Capital picked by Kanden, Undertow Spillway picked by King Hatano Fan Club, Robo Ramen picked by Kanden, and both of them having picked Umami Ruins.
I'm the thought that someone would purposefully pick Flounder Heights is insane to me.
So I know last time for Sturgeon, we were like, surely sloshers. But like, I see Flounder Heights, and I'm like, no, but really, surely sloshers, right?
I mean, I think blasters are also really strong here. Sloshers, blasters, AoE. But the retake, I think Flounder Heights by far has the most brutal retake in the entire game. I think it's worse than Hammerhead. I think it's worse than anything. Breaking in can be just so tough. But I think both of these teams, should be running maybe leaders. So at the very least, you do have perhaps your leader on snipe that can take people out in mid. But ultimately, I think it's quite a gamble. I think even if you're strong there, to willingly go to a Flounder Heights, because one slip up, one wipeout, and you can sometimes kiss mid and both of the zones goodbye for the.
Yeah, it can be really, really difficult to move in here. I feel like Splat zones on Flounder Heights either is a 100-0 or things get stalled out for so long.
That's what happens with those double zones, And then even worse, the sort of layout, it reminds me of like a Manta Marine, where getting to the other zone, you have to essentially like dominate the other team to get your hands on that other zone. Unlike maybe like a Umami, where you can just kind of put the paint there. It just kind of goes on the zone. It is what it is. It's so far away. So like you're gonna have to put yourself in a position where you're trying to just lock out the other team to get your hands on the zone. Otherwise it's going to be constantly contested, the one that's like so far away from you. So like you said, either you do successfully dominate the other team, they can't break back into mid, and you just tick down 100-0, or the team is fighting you and it's just neutralized, unneutralized, all you
only hold one at a time.
Yeah. Or they, you finally have the other one and they somehow sneak behind you, and now yours is in the enemy color. So we are queuing into this. That's that bucket you were asking for there, along with a back charger. Yes, buckets on both sides. I love to see an end try. You know me.
Yeah, both teams do have an end try, so that will be the tacticaler for both teams here. Definitely not going to be like a tacticaler spammer by any means. A very, very aggressive tacticaler, but one of my favorites for sure. It is so aggressive, and Fizzy's not to be underestimated here. But yeah, we've got that just jockeying for control at this point. Nobody having a solid hold here.
No, not at all. And actually, it's very dangerous to have this gal as well. The fact that they have a wall, they can set that up and just make it difficult for you to walk is huge. But you have Pablo getting this pick, just trying to rush that backline, likely going to go down, and they do accordingly, while two of their members are down as well. So they're trying to break back into mid, and we are already at that very unfortunate sort of situation where getting back your own plat, getting to that garden section is hard, especially with all of these specials being popped to keep them back.
Yeah, that crab did end, and unfortunately it ended when it did. It could not save Punchy from just enough damage going down, but look at that bomb taking out the Stamper. That's going to be unfortunate, but they've got enough control for King Hatano Fanclub, with Pablo having a stronghold just sharking right here. You know, I didn't mention the VAC earlier for the previous time the Charger over for Kanden used it, but we have been seeing the VAC come out for splat zones a little bit more frequently than we had before.
Yes, I would argue there's especially a lot of European teams that love to run it in zones in particular. I've noticed. I think it's becoming a little bit more popular in NA as well. But I think clearly that VAC sort of was useful to them. There's somebody just kind of a straggler at the end there. Punchy gets that pick before popping this crab to keep everybody away. They are very chipped out. They try and chip them with that burst bomb, but it doesn't quite find purchase. But in the meantime, I think they might be able to take this lead, and they do. So crunch time for sure for King Hatano Fan.
Yeah, and they're going down one by one. That VAC is online again, ready to be used by Kanden. They're going to take out the heavy right here. It's going to be hard to get in with the amount of time that they have remaining. They're going to be forced to start using their specials here. The Whale being used, but the VAC being used far away from the zone. But it doesn't matter because members of King Hatano Fanclub are going down one by one. Strikes coming out from Omen here on the Slosher, able to chase down members. They are going to go down themselves, but it doesn't matter. That's game. We did not have a 100-0, but, you know, we did have essentially the, 50-0.
Yeah, it was really interesting seeing both of these teams really organize themselves to just break in. And I think ultimately we just saw really good hustle from Kanden. The fact that they were able to move with their VAC, I think they had really strong specials, it felt like, for retake. They had strikes, they had a crab. Just a lot of really oppressive power. And at the end there, King Hatano Fanclub could have been able to take it back. But I think the fact that Kanden was able to win their 1v1s when they were in the enemy core just gave them the rest of the time. There was no time to break back into mid. That's really what counted most at the end.
Yeah, we are going to be moving on to Crab Leg Capital, which was Kanden's pick. And with the Charger, I can see why they set up that Charger effectively. It's going to be very, very obnoxious for the opponents to get in.
And we saw that VAC, but realistically, anybody who knows ball knows that Bake is a leader player by trade. That is, I would say, you know, you've got that cute little V Charger for the VAC, but I would be shocked if Bake, forgoes playing a leader. And I'm assuming that's actually, you said it was Kanden's pick. They're probably picking it for that exact reason. But I think that if we see U-Snipe also perhaps on a Charger, then they may be able to match them. But I think U-Snipe, am I wrong, may have been playing less Chargers these days. I think I've seen U-Snipe sometimes on like a pro and stuff like that. So we'll see if they end up mirror matching that Charger. But if they don't, it's certainly going to be super oppressive to have Bake sitting on that mid here on Crab Leg.
Loading in here. We've got the pencil. And yep, we've got Bake using the leader.
Yes. So luckily they do have that pen for a little bit of range. Like I always say, range is king when it comes to crab leg. And right off the top, not only is this a leader, it's a scoped leader, which is like one of the most oppressive weapons in the game. I think Pablo gonna get tap shotted there a little bit. Bake moving out of position, but going back into snipe and dropping down to see if they can take a better advantageous position. So right off the top, not any really clear holds. 2 members are down on King Hatano Fanclub, so they might be able to set themselves up for a more healthy hold, but we'll see, seeing as though the zone is currently in neutral.
Yeah, they were going for fights right then. 1 member for each team essentially went down. One of them, though, of course, jumping out instead of dying on their own. Still very much back and forth. Lead may possibly swap, but it's so early at this point. Punchy, like we saw on that splash earlier using the crab, going to be forced to actually dip and dodge away from things, but gets pushed into a really disadvantageous position. Gets taken out here. King Hatano Fanclub been holding some things down, but still, members going down on both sides here. It's the Stamper who's going to have to go in here, play very, very aggressively, but without the offensive help from their frontliner on the Gal, so all they could really do was just stall things out a little bit, but that did buy enough time to get down all the way into the 30s for King Hatano Fanclub. You'd think that, you know, they were the ones who picked this.
Yes, they've been doing super well there. Finally, I think that they have Bake set up in this mid, which is going to be super difficult. I think someone has to get this pick on Bake if they ever hope to really drop. But speaking of dropping, it's actually Bake who maybe accidentally drops there because they immediately get punished by that Gal. 2 of their members are down, and now that these strikes are out, that is going to be the zone right back there for King Fanclub. So Hey tries to close that off on Punchy, doesn't quite get the pick, but what is more important is that they have all that pressure and they have their zip to boot, so this might get ugly.
Yeah, they did use that zip pretty effectively last time just to buy some time to keep Kanden on their toes here. Punchy's crabs, I think, have been having a really hard time getting a lot of value for this go-around compared to Flounder. They've been really struggling. They've been floundering on this game in Crab Leg, unable to make a whole lot out of it. And now it's stocks are up for King Hatano Fanclub. They're entering double digits, taking down that try. They're going to use those strikes, hold on to zone. They'll have to keep a little bit more paint down. They do, and they take the game, tying it up.
Yes, I think King Hatano Fanclub, they were anticipating those strikes. We saw how useful that was for retake in Flounder, and they struck them, so to speak, making sure to hold on to those so that they could they didn't have to worry about painting over it or anything. So pretty masterful playing there, especially up against what is one of the premier leader maps, and Bake being on the even worse leader, I would argue, in scope leader, and still making sure that they assessed the threat level of all the members of Kanden and kept them in check.
Yeah, leaders can be so oppressive, but if they're not able to set up and they have a really limited view of where they can safely stand from, you really remove a lot of the threat that the leader poses. And King Hatano Fanclub did an amazing job on that, on what is, I would say on paper, like absolutely should have gone to Kanden, just looking at what the comps were, but they showed, you know, if you control the pace of the game, you control where your opponents can step, and it does not matter what the opponents necessarily picked. And now going into the 3rd game, we're going to be going to Undertow. And I don't know about you, Sasu, but I have genuinely no idea who's going to win this one.
Yeah, especially because I would argue Chargers are a little bit less effective here than they are perhaps on other maps, which is why I think this is not Kanden's pick, I'm pretty sure. So unless, let me double check to make sure that yes, it is the Team 2 pick there. So that will be Hatano Fanclub's pick, really good counter pick there. And I think that we're once again at a double zone. So I wonder if we have a switch back to that V Charger, because I think that was really helpful last time around. Yes, we do see it. The double bucket is back. We have the same exact comp I think we saw before, because I think Kanden and Crableg, they were really struggling with their retaking. Having that vac for everyone to walk with, I think that'll be helpful for them.
Yeah, right now, multiple members on Kanden actually going to be the first to go down here. Hey on the Stamper got in some aggressive positioning. He's going to dip back just to get the cooler, but everybody's setting up yet again, starting to hold these areas. And now specials being deployed on both sides. People going down on both sides here. But this is a double zone map, so even if one team can't control both, if they can just manage to stall out one zone to buy time for the rest of the team to get in, that will be huge. However, Kanden really struggling to get in. Their retake was really, really, really rough, and I'm hoping that they're going to use that vac right here in a second. That does get deployed. That should hopefully help them get in, but it looks like they're just a little bit scattered right now, but able to get in some really good picks. This might be finally where they can turn the tides.
Yes, especially right after that back, you have Punchy with that crab, and I think all of that offensive pressure just causes King Hatano fan club to really fold like a panini. So you see a lot of those members going down. The pen is trying to set up on that top there, but they get struck down and they take back the zone without even incurring a Kanden still have the strongholds, but they do have to contest with the fact that not only are these whales out and harassing them, you have also the strikes that came out and neutralized things a little bit. They get back this zone, but despite the fact that Kanden is closing in on that score, this hold has felt a little flimsy and a little precarious. You see one member going down to that pressure there, and Punchy behind, but going up against that wall, getting a pick. Lot happening here, Rose.
Yeah, I mean, managing to survive when they did was really, really helpful. They did, however, lose control of the zone there. So it is going to incur a pretty massive penalty onto Kanden. They're going to have 51 points. They're going to have to start taking through now in order to get the lead. But if they do manage to have a strong hold, they could absolutely overtake the lead very, very quickly. Those penalty points are going to tick down very, very swiftly. And I'm wondering if we're going to see a zip coming out. There it is. Hey, moving in, looking for a pick on Omen. They're swinging the sword. They're not able to get it. Can they get this one? No, they're going to be forced to end the zip. But they do have a cooler on their jump, able to start moving in aggressively. But Punchy's crab does win out this time. However, still, we've not had a full controlled hold from Kanden. And that is what they're going to need in order to get the lead.
Yes, they really just have to have a stranglehold. You see 3 of their members are down, 2 members down on King Hatano fan club, but the people who are up have a good amount of control. It's that slosher v slosher we see going on there. I think the member from Kanden just kind of backs off of that for now, but all the while King Hatano fan done a really good job of just eating through those points. But the signature kind of special spam that we see out of Kanden does happen. Doesn't quite get the zone for them. I think we saw those strikes as well as those crabs, but unfortunately that's going to go a little bit to because they don't end up getting anything from it. The Hail Mary is going to come out of this back. 2 of their members are down. It's just one left, and that is Punchy. So I think alone Bake is not going to take that. So King Hatano fan club. I don't know if I'd say in a dominant fashion. I think their holds were very dominant, but little by little, they did take this game back.
They did, yeah. I think overall, they definitely were verging on some amount of dominance. In that game we just saw, they had a couple shaky moments, but they did a really good job of forcing Kanden to use specials to get in. And I thought overall they did a pretty good job forcing Kanden to misplay those specials and have a really hard time retaking with the specials, or if they had to burn them all just to do the retake to get in, then they didn't have anything to actually use to go for a hold moving forward.
Ultimately, all those holds just felt sort of precarious. Like, I think that King Hatano Fan Club did a really good job of making their presence known, never being in a sort of state where they were just all on their own plat, struggling to get in, where they can just be kind of picked off one by one. You had Pablo up on glass, constantly sloshing, so anyone who was in mid on spine area was having a hard time. They just had really good presence on the map, and I think that's kind of what won them the day. But moving into that next game, it is going to be Robo Ramen. I think that Kanden actually may have a really strong, I believe this is their pick, if I'm not mistaken, and I think they might have a good claim here. I think with how strong their retake is, think about having, I think, Punchy on that crab. Let me confirm first that that's what they're doing. Correct. They have not changed anything, neither of these teams. But I think between this Vac with the strikes, with the crab, walking forward into mid and even into the enemy elbow if they play their cards right, should be good for them.
Yeah, what a strong opening from them. That felt completely different. They've got a really strong hold here, and I did check this was Kanden's map pick. They're playing it very confidently. This is a great crab from Punchy. Gotta go down to that stamper, but you know what? I'd say that's worth it. That's worth it. We are stalling out King Hatano Fan Club here. Even when members go down, you get like other members of Kanden getting in like a pick from that snipe we just saw from Bake, holding things down, and that nearly flipped over into the control of King Hatano Fan Club, but Kanden still has control here. They are gonna lose control right here, but Omen manages to jump out. It is going to be King Hatano Fan Club's time to shine, see if they can get down below 42.
Yes, Kanden gonna get that pick. I think that's going to be super important because they also have those strikes that I think that they're holding on to make sure that they can have upper push. Punchy getting striked out a little bit there. Omen does have those strikes. I think that allows their teams to kind of walk with them, and they have the Vac. That signature Kanden sort of collapse of specials are going to happen, but they lose two members in the meantime, so I don't think they're going to be able to hold on to the zone here, but ultimately I think incurring that penalty, giving themselves a little bit more time, and allowing themselves to get these two picks on the members of King Hatano is just enough to make sure that things stay nice and...
Yeah, at first I was wondering if all of those resources being committed when they did was ultimately worth it. They lost so many people, and even if you incur some penalty points, if you lose your whole team, was that really worth it? Because now you can't hold it. But you know what? They did get back in pretty quickly after that, I think thanks to a tacticooler. And they still haven't had a long hold here, but King Hatano Fan Club hasn't yet either, though that may be changing just now with a wipeout, able to get a few really quick successive splats here. Hu and Hey are just so aggressive here. Who's gonna go down, but Hey also going down, and this is gonna be a lead switch happening here in just a second, because just too many people of Kanden went down. But I think if they can get their specials back up and take some good positions, they could make their way back in. But now that I say that, I think things are looking pretty dicey for them. Down to 20 ticks left to go. Omen's going to try to use those strikes to get in, but I don't know that it's going to be enough. They're going to need more paint on that zone. They have only a couple more seconds before that it's going to go to King Hatano Fan Club, and it does.
I was just thinking to myself, Rose, they do not have the paint to outpaint them. They're gonna have to just get the picks on the opposing members, and I think they went the route of just trying to outpaint them in panic. You know, you don't want to throw yourself at someone and blow up, but I think it was unfortunately to their detriment at the end there, and they just got, after they went down, they got outpainted in zone. It is what it is, and Hatano Fan Club takes that win at the end.
Yeah, they're going to be knocking Kanden down into the losers bracket, where they will be going up against our friends over at Whole House, who we saw in the previous set. But man, I really liked what we saw from Kanden. It looked like sometimes an overcommittal of specials and resources not being used most effectively, and King Hatano Fan Club really took advantage of that and counterplayed it.
Yes, I think maybe they saw what they did in the first game and how much trouble they had against it, and they realized this is how we have to get rid of this, you know? Punchy's crab, they had a sword ready for it, right? You can just shred straight through a sword if you zip it, if you're just able to get that vertical slash in. Same thing if you're zipping the backlash. I think knowing that they have those specials, they had strikes to counter with as well. Whenever they struck the zone, they were able to just use the triple ink strikes that they had for themselves to make sure that they neutralized that. And ultimately, it felt like they like learned their lesson from the first game and really put it into action in the subsequent games afterward.
Yeah, you're right about that, and props to the King Hatano fan club for reading what was the struggle and flounder, which can be a pretty, struggle to retake on, and adapted going forward, and then they were just able to sweep the following 3 games.
Yeah, really good games. Both of these teams not out of it yet. There's just a little bit more of a push that has to be done to qualify in that winner's bracket, but we are going to go to a short break where we'll have more games ready for you. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the SendouQ Season 11 finale qualifier.
I'm watching this guy.
Hey, jump.
They're jumping
Now we're back to a fight for the zone. Both of these teams are around, but 2 down.
Nope.
On to PXG, but grab tank.
Dead. Zone, ping. Oh, catch it. Oh.
No, dude, don't do this. Come on, kill.
Nice.
Strike.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SendouQ 11 finale qualifier. I'm Saucy Rose, and we are going to be taking a look at the winners bracket semis. This is for, I'd say, like all the bananas, a lot of the bananas, if anything, because the
bananas to make banana bread.
And you're going to take that banana bread right to the bank because the winner of this, Poltergeist versus Topi Taupe Propaganda, qualifies. They are in the top 4 and they go straight to the SendouQ season 11 finale.
Yes. And we will be doing splat zones. Of course, again and again. But we will be hitting up Umami Ruins, which both teams picked. Both teams also picked Robo Ramen. I think those are 2 pretty commonly picked stages. But then we will be switching back over to single team picks. We'll be doing Museum d'Alfonsino and then Mahi Mahi Resort, and then possibly ending it on Barnacle and Dime.
Unlike those other 2 matches, nothing here is really unconventional. These are tournament legal for practically any sort of tournament that you'll see, whether it's flat zones only or not. So, I mean, every player has their preferences, but I think that both of them should be just about fine with any of those. But luckily for them, or maybe unluckily, sometimes you want to start off with your pick. Both teams picked this, so looking at these loadouts, very interestingly, I have to point out that we see a crab dread. You don't see that every day. And meanwhile, I think there's a pretty standard comp in that for everybody.
Yeah, and right now, first person to go down is going to be over on Topi Taupe Propaganda. They're getting really painted out here. That really quick crab from the splash going to do a lot of damage here. And actually, the opposing crab for Topi Taupe Propaganda not actually able to get a whole lot of use. That dread really only got to use it to stay alive for a little bit longer. Poltergeist already moving in very, very aggressively. The key here is going to be that they can play this aggressively and hold the space by this dome area without giving up space by everybody overextending and dying.
Yes, they are looking for a lockout here. IPS gonna try and chip people out with that crab, a little bit more successful than the last out of that dread. And I think all the while they're able to still kind of keep their presence going in that mid. IPS does get located by that point sensor, so that spends the end of them. And I think in the meantime, especially receiving this wipeout on the other team, oh, how the turns have tabled, because now it is Topi Taupe Propaganda who is trying to position them difficult for Poltergeist to get back.
Yeah, if they can do what Poltergeist did to them and just hold it aggressively, that's going to be fantastic for them. They're not as far up as Poltergeist did to them, but they're, you know, in return, not going down too aggressively on their own. This could be a lead swap happening right here. The Dread's positioned beautifully, but is going to be forced to relocate here. Dread really great on Umami zones for being able to pick away and chip away under ledges, and that is swapping over to Topi Taupe Propaganda. The splashdown gonna come out, not get anybody, but still holding the space. Sasu, it is ticking down so quickly here.
It is, but nobody is left there. They get the wipeout, but that is enough time for them to stop this runaway that we were seeing there. Cleaned everything up. And now, once again, they're kind of trading spaces there. We do have this double happening, and there is a very dangerous situation where they might stagger, but I think all the while, one stray member of Topi Taupe Propaganda has been able to break into mid. Everyone has to kind of turn around to deal with that, and I think, unfortunately, nothing has really been gained from that, despite the fact that everyone had to control it and maybe gave up a bit of their control of the enemy court area. Topi Taupe Propaganda, look, they're still in their plot.
Yeah, and that Dread's gonna go down as well. The splashdown is ready from the custom blaster. They might try to use it on the zone here. Here it comes, but still not able enough. Only a couple more seconds that Poltergeist has to hold it. They're able to do so. They take the first game.
Yes, very masterful hold we saw there. As much as it was kind of trading hands. Usually you see, I think, a bit more neutral going on, a bit more fighting in zone. It was just a case of who is able to stop the other team from just getting past that choke point and breaking into mid. And I think that clearly Poltergeist just had the stronger holds. They had a straggler go behind them, and it wasn't enough to, despite I think like 3 people were on that guy like white on rice. They still didn't lose control of that choke point. So Poltergeist is just doing a really fantastic job of managing their resources and prioritizing how to threaten the other team enough that they didn't feel comfortable moving forward. Because you even see on their own hold, you mentioned it, Rose, they weren't moving up as much as we saw Poltergeist. And I think that really shows in that how maybe tentative they were feeling about going up against them.
Yeah, they did not quite have the space on that push to be able to push up farther and actually get control of the opponent's dome, which really meant that they could not have that strong hold to eat up a ton of time. They did have a good hold, but you know what? It didn't turn out for them. So we'll just have to see for game 2 if they're able to change it up. Robo Ramen, both teams picked this one. Both teams, I think we're going to see weapons that play this very strongly. We are going to be sticking on that Crab Dread over for Topi Taupe Propaganda. Crab can be really strong here. I personally think Reef Slider does a ton of damage on Robo Ramen for anybody clumping up on their own ramp. But you know what? Dread itself, great at holding space here. But again, I believe despite the points on the board, I think Poltergeist is actually having the stronger opening right now.
Yes, it kind of feels like that. They've done a really good job of making sure that they're not pencil. That is an indicative of when you're in a really difficult position, when the pen is able to really take that space, walk free. But in the meantime, this blaster, blast, has been just kind of getting tagged here, getting chipped out. This whale comes out to take some damage also on the enemy stamper, and there's just like a lot of fighting going on, I'd argue.
I know. I don't know if you can hear, my cat is meowing up a storm behind me. Very excited about what's been going on the screen here. But right now, Topi Taupe Propaganda not going to be feeling too excited. They are going to cap the zone with that splashdown. But we have a fight going on here. The Blaster's going to say, nope, never mind, I'm turning. I'm going to get a pick over there instead, challenging this pencil right now. A really great spot for the Blaster to be poking. And still, points going down for Poltergeist here. They are the dominant force still in this game.
Yeah, maybe I'm right there with you with your cat, because I feel like it's been so exciting watching this gameplay, seeing that Blaster have 2 of their members go down. It's still trying to move forward, that trade coming out there, 2 of those members being down, and you see Poltergeist right handed. 2 of their members are down. They're currently jumping back in, all the while Poltergeist just has the paint power to stay there. So the Blaster, that Dread goes down as well, and it seems like they just cannot break in forward. We're once again running into this issue where Topi Taupe Propaganda just isn't able to properly challenge Poltergeist with all of their weight, and so this time is ticking down. It's just the pen who has the paint, but it's simply not enough. Poltergeist once again moves forward with the dominant win here.
That was a strong hold from Poltergeist. Once they had a really strong grasp of it, they did not let up there. Anytime that we saw people go down, they had teammates coming back in pretty quickly. And I think their stalling potential really worked out for them there. Topi Taupe Propaganda had to go take some really aggressive positions that just didn't pan out for them.
Yeah, I think perhaps too many people just going down, unfortunately, because I saw their Blaster was really putting in a lot of the work. We saw not just able to get picks, but also just get away with it unchecked. Like I saw they were on the enemy sort of side, and they got 2, and then they got out scot-free, even with not a lot of paint. We saw that things were very yellow for Poltergeist practically the entire time. But I don't know. I think then you look back and you see 2 of their members went down. You can't really get a hold, not every to play off of it. So I think that sometimes you just lose your ones. Someone flanks you, things happen, and it just kind of crumbles, unfortunately.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Topi Propaganda, I believe Museum d'Alfonsino was Poltergeist's pick. So they've lost both maps that were picked by both of the teams, and now they're not even playing on the map that they picked. If they manage to survive this, they will be going on to Mahi, which they themselves picked, but they've got to survive Museum d'Alfonsino, and talk about a map that really forces you to heavily commit on dropping into taking zone.
Yes, but this may be their time to shine. I think with that crab, that they may be able to have it now. Granted, IPS is on flash, so they're gonna have to worry about being counter crabbed. Ultimately, they have pretty similar comps going on here, but I think between the fighting power of the Gal being able to set up some walls and take those fights accordingly, they might be in a good situation. They play right, so right off the top, no one quite has the zone, but Exile comes out on top in that 1v1. They're now trying to ledge the pen and make things difficult. Check that person who dropped, who I think to jump out ultimately, or not. I think in the meantime, they kind of turned their back and everybody exploded from under their feet. So they're defending them here. They do so with 2 going down. I'm shocked, Rose. They basically got out of that scot-free with all of those people going 1v.
They did. I was just staring at Spec being like, surely you go down. And, you know, they eventually did, but not without committing a ton of war crimes in the process. And then the blaster comes in and cleans up the rest.
Wow, yeah, the fact that you can count on your teammates to come back in and clean everything up, the fact that you can get a double when you're already in trouble is just some strong gameplay here. But Topi Bite in this 1v1 does get that pick and ultimately renders that splashdown useless, gets a pick on the that's going to be huge. But they did not do so before the pen got that cooler out. Probably going to be back fast, but all the while, that's that crab in mid-spinner I was talking about coming out of Propaganda, and it's earned them the lead. One of the first seen.
Yeah, they do have the lead here. They're going to keep controlling zone. Tacticler coming out for Topi Propaganda. IPS is going to start using the lob shots from this crab to start choking out some people with some AoE damage, but still not enough to get picks and not enough to paint the zone either. Still firmly in control of Topi Propaganda. They could maybe be threatening the first game win, but no, that is going to swap back over to Poltergeist control. They are still in the game. Plenty of penalty points to tick through. That's not going to take too long if they're able to keep holding here. But I don't know. Spec is here. They are going to go down. And unfortunately, just not able to make the magic happen that happened last time.
Yes, and I think importantly, Topi Propaganda getting this zone again reinstates those penalty points. We are just about halfway through the match, so there's still a lot of time that may happen here, and I think Poltergeist has gotten this zone back. They have a Booyah ready to play off of if they need, but the whale kind of comes out, harasses them, go backwards, so they do pop that to see if they can catch those people on right, holding hands, especially because blast there, but they go down to the splashdown. It's back and forth, but Poltergeist has been able to break through those penalty points, and with 2 members down, they can really get a hold in here and snatch back.
Yeah, look, IPS is going to start using this crab to hold and even get a pick there off of that lobbed shot. Able to do so. They are getting the lead now. It's up to Topi Propaganda. They need to win this to stay in the game. They need to paint that, but it is not enough time. They're not able to take that back. That is going to be game, set, match for Poltergeist to move on into the winners finals.
That's painful. Topi Propaganda almost just kind of Uno reverse carded them. They looked like they were poised to possibly take that game, especially on the enemy pick. Would have been huge for them, especially because Poltergeist has officially gone into the section where they move on to the season 11 SendouQ finals. They have now qualified. So now there's just more fighting to be done because they go down to losers. But that just, I'm glad cams weren't on because the pain I felt of seeing them almost clinch that and possibly stay alive in this game. Very unfortunate, but they definitely played very.
I did. We saw so much life in them in that museum game. I think they fumbled that retake at the end and really struggled to get back in. Poltergeist managed to lock back in and show how dominant they've been. They've only lost one game so far out of 3 sets.
Ooh, I think that shows why they've really earned their way into the final. Doing this qualifier, the fact that they haven't really dropped anything, and it's not even, they're not the first seed, they're not the second seed. It's not like they're just like a snails where they're expected to just kind of run for everything. And speaking of which, snails, our first seed is currently 2-2 with King Hatano Fanclub. So that's certainly going to be very fun and cool to see which of those teams I say joins them in the final, but it's not final. That doesn't get played out. That is just a qualification at that point. So one of those teams going to have their work cut out for them as they drop into losers and try to get to those semis. But I don't know what hurts more, seeing that museum game just barely lost, or the fact that Rose, that was our last game for this. It was. So, I'm feeling the pain all over again.
We'll never be free. But you know what? There are some 2 really awesome casters who are going to take everybody through the loser side and figure out who else is going to be qualifying for the SendouQ finale, making out top 4 of the qualifier here. You all will be joined by K-Bot and Nox shortly here. But before we go, Sasu, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at Sasu in your pants, SASUIN, the letters UR pants. Basically on any social media, on Twitch, on Blue Sky, what have you. But if you're like, one Pinkling's not enough, I need the other New York Pinkling. Where do they go, Rose?
They can find me over on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Rose of Battle. You can also find me over on YouTube, where I'm also Rose of Battle, and also have Rose of Battle VODs as my streaming channel over on YouTube. Or if you want to see some cute cat photos, or maybe me doing some bungee exercising that I'm suffering for today, you can find me over at Blue Sky, also Rose of Battle.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be it for us. Be sure that you stay tuned for those losers runs so you can see the other half of the people to qualify for the season 11 SendouQ finale. So stay with us. We will be back.
One mic left. I'm watching left guy.
Hey, jump.
They're jumping forward.
Now we're back to a fight for the zone. Both of these teams are around, but 2 down.
Nope.
On to PXG, but grab tank.
Dead. Zone, ping. Oh, catch it. Oh,
No, dude, don't do this. Come on, yo.
nice.
Christ.
Wait.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to the SendouQ Season 11 Finale Qualifier, and I'm back in case you got tired of my voice from this morning. That's right, you've got to put up with it for at least another 2 matches. But I am now joined by Nox. Nox, how are you doing as we round out this afternoon?
You know, at least I'm on mic. At least I get to watch some Splatoon. That's all you need at the end of the day.
Truly all we need. The bottom of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs are met.
Yeah, you don't
by
need
watching
food.
Splatoon.
Just
No,
Splatoon.
None of that.
Yeah.
Just Splatoon. We are now switching back on down to the losers bracket, as we are only playing through to a top 4 today, as it is 4 teams that will qualify for the finale. So we already have our first 2, and now these 2 teams will be battling to make it into a qualification match. It's Exile versus Epitaph here, Nox.
Yeah, it should be exciting to get into. Always interesting when Acing's out on the field. Exciting to see a Luna Blaster out and about. Maybe less exciting than it was these days. We're seeing more and more of them.
I think, I mean, the blasters obviously have been around to stay for some time, I suppose. But the Luna in of itself is actually, I find, at least moderately interesting because
absolutely.
It's a shorter range. You have different things you can do with your fizzy bombs. And of course, who doesn't love a good ultra stamp play?
Yeah, you can always make it into an E-liter 5K if you really want to.
It's been 9,000 years. I was in the call. I was in the call when that term was coined.
Yeah, and it's still one of the funniest terms that's ever been coined.
Well, I don't know.
And abandoned.
I think the funniest term that's ever been coined and abandoned was pulling a Tudos, but I digress.
Even I don't remember that one.
Well, you weren't around for that.
Yeah, that was my joke.
That was before your time. Map list is here, of course, still Splat Zones today, starting on everybody's favorite Inkblot. I say that, and I don't remember when the last time I commentated a game on Inkblot Art Academy was.
I mean,
I don't know
really
why.
Haven't been seeing as much of it lately, which I'm not one to complain about. I don't like seeing Inkblot Art Academy. But yeah, especially between the NA League and everything else going on, we've been seeing a lot less of Inkblot Art Academy, and I'd say Mako Mart than we have in the past.
A little less Mako Mart. I mean, it's not the perennial first pick always and forever. So I suppose that's probably a good thing. And maybe that's also means that teams are actually diversifying what they want to play now, instead of just assuming that they can play the same stage over and over and over again. And they actually have opinions now on where they think their own weapons are strong. Whether or not those opinions are correct remains to be seen, I suppose. But
hey, we'll take them having opinions. It's a great step.
That is very true.
It's always interesting, especially with tournaments like this, to see what teams have decided to put into the map pool and Sendo Inc. chooses for them.
Yeah.
Inkblot Art Academy's always a classic, though admittedly we see a lot more of it for TC than Zones.
Yeah, right. But not like nobody's ever seen this stage on Zones ever.
No.
It sure is there.
It sure is. I don't know what we should expect to see these 2 teams pull out here, other than almost surely at least one blaster on each side.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about before we went live that we're in an interesting spot in terms of anchor metas. Obviously, there are no lack of Snipe Raider players in the current stage of things, but there are more options than there has been, certainly, for what else you could play on top of that, whether that's E-Leader, Heavy Splatling, both Heavy Splatling and Snipe Raider. There are a lot of other combinations. I mean, you could maybe try to make Dynamo work, although that's been seeing less play as of the past little while. So there are possibilities where other things can try to come out, but it's hardly... You're going to be hard-pressed to find more teams doing that, because playing just a cooler weapon seems to be a lost art at this point. where we have, just because it's been on a typewriter for so long, that's the way it's going to stay.
And to be fair, it has been that way for 3 years? So long. And it's nice.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, 3 sounds right, because there was the short stint of other things.
Well, the game came out 4 years ago.
Yeah, there was Crab Tank for a while. That's where my mind was at. I don't want to see 2 Crab Tanks on the same team ever again. That's what was happening there. It's always interesting to see what teams will choose to do. I personally think this is a really great tri-stringer map. I don't expect to see it, but I can dream.
Keep dreaming.
I will.
You might need that.
I've lived delusionally for this long. It's not about to change.
Yeah, let's see what else we can pull up on these teams. Is there anything? We do have this wonderful website that we could use.
As always, if you're somehow tuning into a Splatoon community tournament stream for the first time, SendouQ is the area where you can find every Splatoon resource known to man.
Yeah, so Exile, Blaster, Squiffer, not Swiffer, the traditional, all of 3 of the backlines I just said. Potentially a Dreadbringer here as well.
Oh, and a heavy edit. Not something we see much of these days. It is one of those cooler options. It plays pretty forward, pretty fast, but we definitely see a lot more of heavy these days than heavy edit from Skittles.
I will say I generally like the idea of a heavy edit. I think it's still enough range. It can have some combos, and of course, if you really want your Splatling player to have that cooler, it's certainly one of the options, your only options at that point. Yeah. So it's very versatile, I think, which is one of the things that's fantastic about it. And it can be applied very well in a lot of settings. You see it here on the flanking side, trying to team up and defend off the push coming in from Exile. Looks like going to be largely successful in doing so, as Epitaph will take control, paint the square in yellow, and now is looking even further with an Ultra Stamp coming out. There's a wipeout completely, and that's going to set them up really well.
Yeah, a wiper on your plat is not something you really want to see, especially on a stage like Inkwell, where there are those ledges they can choose to get under. There are good spots to shark, like we just saw, an easy escape pass to get out of at the last possible second.
As long as you have any out, it's an out that's good enough, and it will be the continued presence of Epitaph here, holding on for a lockout at the moment. You see the Wiper player continuing to sit on the side. Looks like an approach potentially from Nightmare on the 52 gal on the right side, and now some poking as well here. The jump away, but members are already getting taken down of Exile. Not going to be able to get back into this zone here at all. That's an easy cleanup and an early lockout and knockout for Epitaph.
Yeah, Epitaph doing a great job there of getting control and just maintaining it. I don't think their heavy edit Splatling went down a single time in that game. It was very clean, 100-0 push. In the Viper world, and Acing just did such a great job of finding the right moments to be aggressive.
Certainly, and I'm actually curious. Let's see if you're right, Nox. I happen to have the player's perspective stream pulled up to see whether or not that's correct. So we'll get those results in a moment. You are correct. Skittles did not go down a single time. Had 7 splats and assists, 2 coolers, and 0 respawns. So anytime your anchor player doesn't go down, tends to be a good sign for
usually
your odds to win.
Usually a very solid game.
Very strong correlation there. Not causation. As those who have done any statistics course are well aware, but I mean
it's pretty significant. In this game especially. There are times when your anchor might just be too far back, but that was not the case here. Skittles was plenty far forward, able to consistently keep right side of zone, covered, controlled, as consistently as you can in that quick of a knockout. Get to coolers.
And that's the other thing that's great about the heavy splatling, edit specifically, right? Is that you are always within range. You are not, you're going to be hard pressed to just go not do anything, right? You want to be involved. You're going to want to be actively engaged in whatever fight is happening. And we'll see whether or not they can set it up on Umami Ruins. It might be a little more challenging given the map geometry to have such a wide angle, but even still, World here on the Splatoon Wiper, an early pick, and that's going to likely mean another advantage for Epitaph that they might be able to convert on.
Yeah, doing a great job here of finding their openings, taking advantage of them, and getting these really strong starts, and now a crab tank to help secure it, keeping player after player picked off, taken care of. And I really like this crab tank spot. Such great sightlines.
Incredible sightlines here and enabling the rest of the team to move forward underneath it. And you see the Blaster players move up. Now they're going to jump on away as Exile has started to come out of their own spawn. But World is still sitting here on this Wiper. Takes down one. There's a second one to fall. And Epitaph here looking for the knockout once more.
Yeah, looking so confident, not afraid to take these fights, and not hesitating at all, and acing ready to follow up if anybody does manage to get out with a splashdown to take care of, well, not even needed to take care of once, but ready to play cleanup if needed. But we are seeing Exile looking to try and find a path in, not able to land those burst bombs on the zone in time.
A 100-0 knockout completely that time off of an opening early few picks. Exile never fully had their footing to be able to move back in, have the specials coordinated and at the ready to fully make a play towards the zone. And it's what nets the victory there. Again, 2 quick games for Epitaph, looking to make it a quick 3-0. Next up on Hagglefish, which, I don't know, probably is not going to have too terribly dissimilar results, at least not to Umami. Some flanking angles right in the channels on either side, but largely still going to be an open area in the middle where you're able to come up with multiple different angles to come up with. That game as well, Skittles did not go down, so yeah, 2 games Skittles down.
Skittles has some good defense in front of him.
No respawns for the edit.
Yeah, really impressive job there, especially from World. Not often that we see a Splatoon Wiper look particularly strong, especially these days. Not a weapon we see the most of necessarily, and it's nice to see it getting to do so well. Admittedly, Umami has some nice ledges for them to play around, so did Inkblot, but Hagglefish also has plenty of spots to shark around.
Very true, and the Splatoon class in general loves those channels, yes. Right? You're able, I think there's actually a way, I think with a vertical flick, you can have just a channel of ink and that's wide enough to swim in, obviously, but is not wide enough to be seen by an opponent that is coming from that side. So they can't actually just casually look over there. Now, if they open their map or something, right, and they see a giant channel of ink, well, maybe that would give it away, but they wouldn't be able to see you, right, if they're not checking their map and constantly looking at that. And that can create plenty of opportunity for and an opportunity for that flank angle to seemingly come out of nowhere, especially if you have the ultra stamp at the ready.
Yeah, and that torpedo can act as that last moment of distraction you need to really find it. And acing has switched over to that classic Luna Blaster that they're so known for. And no major changes coming out from Exile here. Wouldn't necessarily expect to see any. Maybe that Dreadringer can find a little more value here, but I'd be a little surprised if it does.
We'll see whether or not that Reef Slider can get off. Early first blood here, actually going to Body, is going to take it on the Blaster with slightly longer range against the Wiper on the other side, meaning that Exile could have some advantage, but they're not actually pushing the issue. Acing coming up on the side is going to get taken down and responded to, but I would really like to see Exile start moving forward here. They have a couple of specials, and now diving in off of the Reef Slider, trying to make a fight happen, but they're going to go 3 down in the process. This push will not hold.
You say that, but it seems like Phlegmatic. Nope, the Snipe Rider. The Snipe Rider referencing ancient Greek humors could not quite make that work, and now World's back in behind them, causing chaos. and allowing Epitaph to get a great start of a hold. And once we've seen them get the hold, they've held it very well consistently.
Very true at this point, and you're starting to see why moving together as a unit pretty far forward is going to get taken down. Now acing in the Ultra Stamp, going to be able to find it against Nightmare. Meanwhile, will get taken down by another player. Does look like Epitaph is going to be able to take the lead here. And the cooler is down, so Exile really would like to push the issue, and here are the rest of the specials. Reef Slider is out, but once gets taken down. Skittles will be taken down. Now, Bobby going to go for that Flow Aura here. 2-down situation, looking for another one. No, will get taken down by acing in the channel as everybody dives down this way, looking for a tug of war on this right side of the stage.
Yeah, the right side playing a very pivotal role there of establishing the fight and allowing these players to really feel each other out and find their opportunities. Crab Tank coming out now from Yoshi, trying to set up his chance for Epitaph to get all the way back in. Have lost lead. World helping paint. Acing coming in from the flank, popping this Ultra Stamp, but the Reef Slider coming out to try and act as a deterrent.
Acing finds one, looking for a second. No, denied. Once is going to be able to pick that one up, but the rest of Epitaph looks like they're going to be able to clean up at least a decent chunk of the zone. Skittles too far forward. Nightmare's going to pounce on the heavy-headed Splatling, and there's the wipeout as Exile responds in kind, exiling their opponents back to their own spawn and are moving forward themselves.
Exile doing a really great job of finding their opportunities to move forward, utilizing their specials to do so. Reef Slider, well, it's not what it was until then it used to be, so pretty useful in that regard. And a big bubbler at the ready can really help secure this hold for them.
There is the big bubbler. It goes down here. Ultra Stamp gets taken right through it. Bobby's going to get taken down. And now as well, once taken down in the Dread Ringer, World starts to move forward. Is on like 5 HP. Is still somehow alive. Acing has the Ultra Stamp at the ready here too. Ready to collapse on it from the other side. Now continuing to create chaos here for Epitaph, and will be able to take care of business. They now have the opportunity to find a hold, but Exile is continuously picking them off one by one. We'll see whether or not they can find the holds that they have in the past 2 games.
Yeah, we do see that Killer Whale coming out. Not usually the most impactful special, but can help to disrupt. A few ticks left of the timer before the lead switches back over. The Reef Slider comes out, not in time to stop it, but in time to flip the zone, not allowing Epitaph to keep ticking any further down. But Exile has to find a way to get another hold in, and they've been doing that well so far on this stage, but we've seen them struggling with it on the others.
Does appear as though Epitaph will be able to clean up for now. One's going to get taken down again by a Crab Tank this time. Bobby's going to step forward again in the Blaster. Battle of the Blasters going back and forth in terms of who's able to actually pick anything up, and I'm going to start to see that Tacticooler come down again. Here comes the big bubbler. All of the pieces are there. Bobby's going to step forward, is going to be able to find 2, and Exile's going to be able to move in off of that with the Reef Slider coming out. Will get taken down and lasered by Skittles, but even still, Exile in decently strong position here. Still has a penalty to work through as we get towards the last part of this game. The Crab Tank now is coming out of Yoshi, trying to make a play towards the zone. Here comes World on the Ultra Stamp, and largely quiet so far this game, but is trying to apply this ink down on top of the zone and will be able to find it for Epitaph now, securing the zone, and there's the wipeout. 15 seconds left, and Epitaph's got it in the bag.
Yes, it would be near impossible for Exile to make it back in there. Really clean first couple games there from Epitaph, and finding a great way to clean up this last one, making it through their penalty points and not needing to do anything else.
Well, right on. Game 3 was a little harder fought both ways, but even still, Epitaph showing themselves as ready to move up the ladder, looking to clinch a spot in the Season 11 finale. They've still got one more opponent to work through who is waiting for them. It is King Hanato Fanclub that is waiting for them in the bracket as we now take a look there. Of course, Snails and Poltergeist will not be played as both teams have already qualified for the finale. And so it's just a matter of these two labeled as losers quarterfinals matches for our qualifiers for the evening.
Yeah, and it should be interesting to see how this goes, especially because King Hatano Fanclub just took Snails to a Game 5. Not necessarily a team we'd expect to see do it, but it was quite exciting to watch the end of.
Certainly true, and we'll see what happens here. Is now we've got one more match, one more best of 5, deciding who is going to advance on to next week's finale and who is going to be watching the broadcast. It's, how do you even say the second word here?
I went with Hatano.
No. Topi.
Oh.
Taupe.
I think it's taupe.
Taupe?
Yeah, I think it's like
Taupe?
the color taupe, maybe.
That's a
Perhaps.
color?
Yes.
Forgive me, for I am an uncultured American.
Okay. I am also an American.
Well, we're not doing so hot here, then, are we?
Perhaps not. Perhaps not. It's always interesting to see how teams like this play out, especially with players that are a little bit less well known than, say, the players on Snails with Gray and Volty. And we've seen some interesting comps coming out today. Like, we just saw double Ultra Stamp. That's definitely not an all-the-time thing.
Not an all-the-time thing, but honestly, out of a lot of your options, not the worst item. If you have, like, a decently strong rest of the pairing, which, Crab Tank, right, was included in that as kind of the third one to round it out, I think that's viable. That isn't going to give you the best chance of success. I don't know, probably not. But if you can consistently come up with value on Ultra Stamps that force your opponent to respond to you, then I think you've done your job.
Yeah, and it's always nice, especially if you're playing against a Snipe Rider or an E-Leader, to have a special like Ultra Stamp or, in your opinion, Trizuka to be able to help clean them up.
Right.
It's always useful to have opportunities like that. As we're seeing,
I will say,
more things like that.
The other thing, too, is we've been seeing a lot more of the rise of this Inkvac. 96 now has been played at least a little bit today. Ultra Stamp goes right through the Inkvac, doesn't have a care in the world.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised we haven't been seeing more melee-type specials in weapons with how often we've been seeing Inkvacs around. I know we've been seeing more Roller out of Moonlight, but that Wiper actually is another great example of things that can do quite well into that.
Yeah. So we'll see what ends up coming out of this here as now we take a look at our stage list, starting on everybody's favorite Mako board, the beloved by most.
Yeah, by most.
Nox, this is the point where you're supposed to smile and say you love it.
No, I have called for a 3-month break from Inkblot since the launch of 3, and I will continue calling for it.
From what?
For a little 3-month break. Oh, I said Inkblot, didn't I? My
was
bad. I
last
haven't
series.
gotten more than 3 hours of sleep in a few days. But Mako Mart's always, I mean, it's a classic for a reason. There's lots of ledges to play around. Anchors can do well here. Slayers do well here. There's a couple flanks. There's just a lot of variety and options, and I think it favors short-range weapons pretty heavily, but most people would disagree with me there.
To each their own. As we load in here, we'll see what comes of this one. A qualification match for the Season 11 SendouQ finale. A spot is on the line here with a Horns Dreadbringer and a Bamboozler on the pitch as we get started.
Yeah, definitely not things we see every day. Bamboozler is always a very interesting one. It definitely can lay down a lot of ink, help claim some space. Not the kit I would expect to see, especially in zones. That Killer Whale is interesting. And that being paired with an Ink Brush gives pretty well lined up damage numbers, actually.
Likely to be the case, and probably also part of the reason why it is picked in this particular instance. You see a lot of that chip damage that is layered on here, especially a very short-range mobile composition. It is the Avengers that are going to be able to get the first laugh here. They're able to find the wipeout, and the response is slowly coming back in from Topi, but a little challenging to see them fully make their efforts known, especially with how many specials they had to pop so early. The crab tank's already down, the triple splashdown is already down, their cards are all on the table, and they have nothing to show for it.
Yeah, you really never want to have to use your specials to break out of spawn, much less to not get to use them to hold zone. The triple splashdown finds more. The Avengers managing to take so much space and looking quite dominant here.
Certainly acting like a pair of well-coordinated Avengers here, continuing to swarm around their opponents, take down any threat out of the sky, and even more. And now the Bamboozler gets a beautiful pick there. It's all purple up to this point with plenty of space, and the brush is right back into the fray here in just a moment. So I have to imagine this one will be at least decently solved, although I say that to go down as two members have started to work their way through, and in fact they will find the cap of the zone to extend our game.
Yeah, Topi doing a great job there of finding the ways to just barely eke through to the zone, focusing on capping it, knowing that they can play cleanup as needed. Now having their blasters set up in a pretty good spot, but not quite able to keep it there, as him looks to find some picks and uses that auto bomb beautifully.
Able to take care of business now, and the Avengers once again with control of the zone, control of a decent portion of the stage once more. The triple splashdown comes out, will get a 1-for-1 trade, and the trade continues as now 3 of the Avengers are down. Did not get what they wanted out of that one, and that allows a crab tank to get set up on this stack. Is going to be critical for this to happen. And now the brush comes in from the side, is able to take down the crab tank and at least stall for some momentum, even if the zone doesn't flip right away.
Yeah, and at this point, even just stalling buys them time to try and find the momentum they need. The 52 gal able to find one splat, not able to find much else here, but staying alive, looking to claim space, and now acting as a distraction to allow their teammates to get back in. There's not much that they have to use to actually get this to be a secure stronghold.
Not really. It's a 3-down situation there, and with no sustaining presence, the Avengers are going to sweep right back in, starting to fly away once more as the crab tank comes out, and probably inopportune position out of the Horns Dreadringer again, forced to pop it early here to try to have a fighting chance at getting back, and now going for broke towards the zone here at the very end. They are able to infiltrate on the left side with enough members going down on that side of the stage. But again, the question becomes, will they be able to find the sustained presence? I think it largely depends on this crab tank here and where it's used, but doesn't even have the chance to with a triple splashdown coming down out of the sky.
Yeah, now saying that the Horde Dreadringer was tacticoolered, but they are going to have to use it to break back in rather than that sustaining power that you were talking about. There's not a lot for them to hold on to. Triple Splashdown is something that you usually use defensively. Whale is not very impactful, and Cooler has its purposes, but it's sure not something that holds the zone.
There's another 3 down, make it a delayed wipeout, and that'll be what nets the Avengers their first game in this qualification match. Props to them for continuing to have some of those larger plays. You know, I think in general, it feels like we are noticing the teams that are able to get set up and choose to take a larger advantage and perhaps take on a little more risk are often rewarded for their risk, stepping in front of the zone, having those more solid holds with larger positioning. And it's actually one of the reasons why, if you care to watch back the VOD, sorry, I did more Splatoon commentary about a little while ago that it's still fresh in my brain. But one of the things I couldn't get out of my head was how many times they were dying with specials. And in no small part, a large part of that is because they are, the instances I'm remembering are when they were playing double Reef Slider, so you can maybe take it with a grain of salt. But even still, they don't want to use both of those at the same time, and they don't even want to use both of those in the same fight. they would rather use one to get in on top of the zone and then try to send one up the long ramp of Brinewater Springs to try to get even more advantage afterwards, right? So choosing to utilize your resources and parcel out what you are going to use in a fight is another critical component of everything that needs to happen. And so I think the trying to find more of where that is a possibility is going to be very critical.
Definitely will. And being able to use those specials at the right time, like you're talking about, really matters, especially with Crab Tank, like we were seeing out of that Horns Dreadringer. It's a special where timing is so important, and it can be such an impactful special, but if you pop it at the wrong time, it leaves you stranded in the middle of nowhere, not able to help in team fights, and not having accomplished all that much.
On to map 2 now, as we head to Barnacle and Dime. No real change in either of the compositions, but the Avengers, an early 2 down from them as Topi continues storming forward. They're able to come up with the wipeout now, and here we go, taking real strong positions, but is going to get punished for attempting to hold up on that upper left side. The Avengers have responded very quickly with a 2-down situation and are starting to sweep through.
Yeah, the Ultra Stamp coming out at a great time to force that Snipe Rider out of the way, able to find one that looked to be jumping in, and now the Ink Brush tracing down the Snipe Rider, able to clean it up, and this is not where you want an Ink Brush to be. They do get cleaned up. That really slows down Topi in getting back in.
2 down either side. Taco Bon now getting taken down with an early pop of the triple splashdown. Meanwhile, the Anzap's going to get taken down here as well and almost takes over to take the lead for the Avengers, but not quite. 2 down now for Topi, and doesn't matter. They won't be able to get back into the zone. The Avengers come away with the lead, and another 2-down situation against their opponents. The Tacticooler is down in a strong position, and here they are looking for the hold. Taco Bon up in the air gets immediately canceled, and so they'll trade 2 of their lives for this stronger push and looking potentially for the knockout. Here comes the Crab Tank again, popped really far back, and the pressure is mounting from the Avengers. They continue shoving their opponents back through as though they just ran into a brick wall. The fight continues. Torrent's going to be able to pick up one, but the fight is taken well away from the zone, and the Avengers will let it tick down to take their second map.
Yeah, the Avengers doing an incredible job of keeping the game played at their pace, and they want to go as fast as possible, it seems, which makes sense with their comp. Between that Bamboozler, between that Ink Brush, those things play faster than most weapons we see today, and they're able to help break open spots for the Blaster to get set up. And the Ink Brush is just able to really keep the Snipe Rider from being able to do their job of actively painting the zone.
Again, it is so much of how all 4 members are working together, right? The further aggressive players like the Blaster are able to dive in, and even if they go down and give their life for it, if it enables some of those further back players to get set up and into strong positions, they have effectively done their job. And you see why there, because it's that much more challenging for your opponents to try to break back through. They feel forced into popping some of their own specials early in order to try to dislodge opponents, and in doing so, they're able to push them back and give some of that space away, burning out and exhausting that resource, and then are able to recollapse and take the fight as it continues to carry on. So the Avengers, great job thus far. We'll see if they can close it out here and clinch their spot in the SendouQ Season 11 finale.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if any approaches change for Undertow Spillway. Definitely a stage where we can see a lot of adaptations. It has some very awkward angles, and I can see Ink Brush having a good time here.
Certainly. Plenty of room to run around in those small enclosed environments. You know, I'm kind of thinking about, so you'll forgive me. I played Super Mario 64 DS. I did not have an N64. I played it on the DS, but one of the first things you do is you chase the bunnies around the garden, a little enclosed space, right, on the far side. That's basically what this is. The brush can just run around as if it's the little bunny in one of the few courtyards that exist on Undertow. I'm thinking most notably the bottom left on the opponent's side of the stage, looking towards that courtyard, running around all the boxes and the ramps, and then running up and down the corridor here on top of the zone. Plenty of running space to continue being that distraction and general nuisance.
And we're seeing a pretty big change over to that Splattershot Junior rather than the Dreadringer. Definitely a good big bubbler stage. Not the most shocking change ever, but still interesting to see nonetheless.
Yeah, I think it's something where perhaps more of that sustained presence is what they're really going for. And if they can get their players set up in a good spot, potentially that bubbler will be able to escort players forward. However, you give up on some significant engaging power with that crab tank, which in some parts has been what has been continuing to attempt to keep Topi in this game. Just haven't been able to do much of anything so far, and including in this stage here, as now it is all the purple of the Avengers once more, continuing to carry out everything here. And you see the triple splashdown up in the air, the brush able to come up with 1, 2 now, and continuing to run around. Will find a third there as well. In just 30 ticks left for the Avengers, they'll go 3 down, and so the zones will likely flip back over. But even still, a push down to 24 early is incredibly strong.
Yeah, it's a very strong opening. Gives them a lot of time and space to work with. Topi is doing a good job of laying down ink to work with now. But it's just so hard for them to deal with the pace that the Avengers are playing at. That speed from the Ink Brush, the Bamboozler, the N-Zap, and the Blaster. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Splatoon 2 comps that were trying so hard not to run Missile.
Doing everything they can, perhaps not to, but even still, jumps coming in here from the Avengers, not able to come up with much value at all. Nobody is around the splat zones for the moment. And here comes the pesky little brush player, perhaps looking to make a play or shark for at least a moment, waiting for the teammates to come in. Jumps out, but not at the right time. Will get taken down, canceled out. And it will be Topi taking control of the zone and starting to move forward. How far forward we'll see, as it looks like the 52 doesn't agree with the rest of the team, gets taken down here early, and we might see the Avengers make a play off of the squid advantage they now have.
A bold big bubbler comes out from the Junior, aids them in finding a trade, and allows Topi to have that extra time to work with and play with. But the Killer Whale forces the Blaster out of position, allows the Snipe Rider to get chased down. The Ultra Stamp finds 1, almost finds a second, and now the Ink Brush is back being an absolute menace to that Snipe Rider.
Continuing to just harass, and again, that's the name of the game, right? The more we can get these aggressive weapons in position, the more the rest of the team can follow up on top of it, and the less that the opponents will be able to get set up. 2 down on both sides at this point, with the brush in position. Once again, sharking might get caught out here, and in fact, certainly has been seen at this point, but even still, the penalty has been worn through. It is now on the top rope. The 52 gal able to find 1. Now looking towards Taco Bon. The big bubbler's going to go out, and even still, Taco Bon will not be taken down. I think that was actually 2 from Taco Bon. The Blaster here for the Avengers as they clean up shop. Topi is not able to find the clean engagement they need, and it's the Avengers taking the sweep 3-0 and qualifying for the SendouQ Season 11 finale.
And that'll be so exciting to watch next weekend. Lots of great teams in it. And now we know some very interesting comps. I really loved how fast the Avengers played. If you're playing that comp, there's not going to be a second to breathe, and they fully acknowledged that and took full advantage.
And we see the bracket now. King Hatano Fanclub is 2-0 up on Epitaph. They'll be looking to close that one out to clinch the other spot. as we await that result. Of course, Snails and Poltergeist also already qualified. And then it's a matter of checking the leaderboard and seeing what other teams are in the mix and who can make it next weekend for the finale event. Should be a lot of fun, and it's qualifierception because these SendouQ Season 11 finale will qualify players towards the second Global Gauntlet finale. So you qualified for the finale so that you could qualify for a finale.
You know, if it gets the job done,
Right
it gets
on.
the job done.
That's right.
And it means there's a lot of upcoming, very exciting Splatoon to keep an eye on.
Certainly has been the case for the past few months and will continue being the case moving forward, with plenty more coming your way from IPL, not only including the SendouQ Season 11 finale next week, but then the week after, it's the second Global Gauntlet qualifier, and then the Global Gauntlet finale. Every weekend, there is something going on at this time of year, which is one of the reasons why it's so exciting, Nox, and that's the least to mention about the other events that are happening that aren't even necessarily a part of this SWS season.
Always so much to keep an eye on, so many new teams showing up, developing their skills, and always the same top players to try and fall. Yet to see it happen, but you never know. It could always be the year.
Maybe somebody will surprise us at some point.
Would be a
certainly
surprise.
could be the Content Cat, maybe in the
Maybe.
Splatoon North American League.
That's true. But to be fair, Pika's been around. All of those players have over 3k XP. It'll be interesting. I'm very excited to see how they do.
It is King Hatano Fanclub that was able to close it out 3-0 over Epitaph. And so those are our 4 teams qualified from the Season 11 qualifier. You see the bracket, make it official on your screen there. But I believe that's going to do it for us while we wait for any other shout outs or anything else. Nox, anything in particular you've got for the crew?
Not particularly. Keep an eye out on everything going on with Splatoon right now. There's a lot happening, and it's all pretty impactful, and there's a lot of different meta comps coming around.
Certainly a lot happening. There's an Area Cup next week. There's MomoCon coming up here shortly. There's the SendouQ finale, also the same weekend. Then we're right into the next Global Gauntlet phases, which you won't want to miss, much of which you can see right here on IPL channels, folks. I believe that'll do it from all of us here today. So thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you around for the next Splatoon broadcast you tune into. Take care now.